Right, so this week we're going to be working on making jars. So I've a couple different ways of creating a jar, and one thing that is really easy is if you have something that you can use as an armature. So here what I did is I took a spaghetti sauce jar, cleaned it out really good, and I'm playing with colored clay. I'm going to end up covering this whole thing with Sculpey and then baking it. But what I want to do is play with some color, and I'm going to do some different things. So I'm going to show you a couple things that I've been experimenting with that work pretty well. So I just printed, this is a Van Gogh painting. You don't have to do something this elaborate, but it might be fun to try. If there's an image or something you want to transition into your clay, you could do this whole thing with just the white Sculpey and do something really great. This is a glass jar, so this is going to end up being the core. But what I really want to do is play with the detail that I put on it, okay? So I've colored some clay, and what I've done, here's some yellow, some orange, some blue, and I still have the blue clay that I made with colored sand as well. I made some green and some brown. What I'm going to do is make some black right now because I want some black clay to be kind of the lines that are in this. And what I'm using to color the clay, which works pretty well, is food coloring. Okay, now I used to do a lot of cake decorating, and I use this food coloring to color fondant or other things. This you can get at Walmart, the baking section, and it makes darker colors. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to literally butter it on. Set that aside. And now I'm going to wedge this in. This does take a little bit of time to mix it together, but I've been able to get some pretty nice colored clay here. All right, a little bit of swirl in there yet. All right, so now I've cleaned my hands, gotten that all taken care of. I've got my blackish greenish clay here. We'll see if that works. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on my jar. Got a little rolling pin. I'm going to start with the brown clay here. Like I said, you don't have to color your clay. It's just a fun thing to experiment with. So I've thinned it out pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and start putting this. I'm going to put it right over the paper. I'm going to leave the paper in there. I don't need to take the paper out later on. I'm going to leave it all in there. All right, so I'm just starting with that brown color, and that's going to be my base, the bottom. And then I'll cut off what I don't need here. I'm going to use different colors as I go to change it based on what's on here. And I'm not going to do all of the detail. I'm just going to do kind of roughly. So I'm going to start with a little bit of green, but I do want to try to keep it as thin as I can, and I want to try to keep the thickness relatively consistent. And I'm going to play a little bit with the lines. Van Gogh paintings tend to have lots of lines of color in there, so I'm going to try to play with that a little bit as I'm working. One thing I could do too is I could take different colors and mix them together. So I want to add a little white to this. So I'm going to put two little strings of white together and then roll that. So now I've got this cool little weird shape, and that might give me something that looks a little bit more like this section of color here. So you have just a little bit of funky color in that section. And take a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, and just a little bit of the brown. Line them up side by side. Okay. This way I've got a funky colored coil. Now, as I'm working on that, I'm going to keep pressing down. I want my walls to be relatively the same consistency the whole way through. Yep.